Yo, what's up, guys? Do not adjust your dials. This is the NASCAR Live Before Lock. I'm Alex, joined today by Phill Bennetzen, aka Rashi's DFS, sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight today. Phill, how you doing, man?
Great, Alex. How are you, bud?
Doing good. It's kind of cool. We got the night race, so we got a little bit more time. Can do the Live Before Lock, and I haven't seen any like real breaking news, but we'll go through all the slate, talk about all the drivers and stuff. But let's just talk about the Coca-Cola 600 in general. Obviously, the 600 in this one is 600 miles, just a really long race. So does that add any different like strategy compared to other NASCAR races?
Yeah, it kind of makes me treat this race, even though this is going to be the 550 horsepower package at an intermediate track, it does lend me to treat this a little bit more like we were using the higher horsepower package. Generally in the races at your short tracks, your Martinsville, your Richmond, your Phoenix, Darlington, Dover, blah, 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 blah. Those races using that 750 horsepower package, we generally try to stay away from the punt plays because um, you know, we see such a it's a vast competitive disadvantage that these cheaper teams have, when it goes into research and development parts, blah 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 blah, and then what that produces on the track. And generally these guys, they start in the 30s, they fight. If they have a good day, they might finish 27th, 28th, but generally, it's a race to see who can be the best of them that's 3 or 4 laps down and finish maybe 30th or 31st. I'm taking that same mentality and I'm applying it towards this race because, like you said, this is 600 miles. This is going to be the ultimate test all season for these cars. If you have any concerns about a car or a driver because of their equipment, it should be amplified tonight because of the sheer length of this race. So, we have this conundrum here where we're trying to fit in the likes of Larson, Truex, Hamlin, Chase, Kyle. They're all above 10K. Because of the 400 laps, we definitely want to. We're even playing around with 3. And when we do that, whether it's hand building or you just go straight to Fantasy Cruncher, you're going to end up with at least one punt play. It's just going to naturally take that transition where it's going to give you a Garrett Smithley, a Quinn Houff, a Justin Haley, a Cody Ware, Billicky, Davison, just, whoever it is. And as I look at these lineups, I think, can this work? Because, yes, I've got access to 3 guys that could easily lead the majority of this race. And in my preview this week, I highlighted that in the majority of these Coke 600 races with the 400 laps, we generally have 3 dominators in these races. So if that's what I'm trying to accomplish with my lineups here, I'm ending up with these terrible, no good plays that I really don't want any access to, but they make my lineups work. So it's a tough pivot point for you, I guess, to say the least. Do I want to take a chance on these guys because they make that 3 dominator build viable? Or am I going to try my best to limit my exposure to them and work my way up so that I'm not taking essentially what could be a dead position in my lineup where, yes, I saved a lot of money with $4,800 Justin Haley, or, I believe it's $5,100 Garrett Smithley, $5,200 BJ McLeod, but I'm getting 7-8 points from these guys. Is that really going to help me land the optimal? So tonight is a tough night for building lineups, and quite frankly, that's the way that it should be.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of weeks we cross those guys off the list, and like there's good reason strategically because they just don't have the upside. We on the site we have this top drivers tool and then kind of projecting the standard deviation of what kind of range of outcomes you're gonna see. So like the ceiling of let's talk about Garrett Smithley. I feel like that's a guy I've never rostered in NASCAR, but ceiling 20 points. I mean, that's not usually gonna get it done, but if your other guys are scoring 100 plus, like it could definitely work. So
Yeah.
that'll be fun to talk about. one thing about these races is it's so long that I feel like on a normal week, some of the mid-range guys, they can get on the lead lap at the end of the race and kind of sneak into a good position. But there's a lot less variance in finishing position in a 600-mile race because the chance that these guys make it on the lead lap to end the race is lower just because there's more opportunities to get lapped. So is that a major consideration that maybe stunts the upside of some of the mid-range?
Right. In your typical intermediate track race, like if we were racing at Kansas, this would be only 267 laps. And with segment breaks, like normally we only have 2 cautions for segment breaks. Tonight we're going to have 3. There's going to be a break at lap 100, lap 200, and lap 300. In those situations, it's a whole lot harder for these guys to end up getting lapped because they're running somewhat similar lap speeds and the track's bigger, so it's tougher for them to get lapped as opposed to a short track like Martinsville, where guys start getting lapped before we ever hit lap 20. But that's the point that you were getting at, because we have so many laps tonight, and the toll that could take on equipment. I'm not really too worried about tires because this is a bit of a low tire wear track. But I mean, when you're talking about everything else on that car, we could definitely see some drivers just get lapped out of just purely falling off of the pace. And when we have those situations, definitely finding a driver in the mid tier that people don't want, people generally would not play. Like for example, let's just talk about Tyler Reddick or really Kurt Busch. Drivers starting 11th through 15th, if they're these kind of mid-tier drivers, they generally don't get that much attention because people think, okay, what is the upside of this guy? His ceiling might be a 9th or an 8th place finish, while his floor could be cutting down a tire, hitting the wall, and absolutely wrecking out. So without that much of a ceiling, they really can't capitalize on that many fantasy points without absolutely leading the race. And these are guys that I don't think, unless they get off sequence with pit strategies, that they're going to be leading the race. However, if we have lots of guys getting lapped, and these guys manage to stay on the lead lap, then they're going to necessarily outscore a bunch of other drivers just because they hold that position.
Yeah, I'm looking at these previous races, and it seems like about half the field ends up on the lead lap. Last year, I guess they had overtime or something because it's 405 laps. It's hard to remember all these at this point, but then 2 years ago, some big names that didn't finish on the lead lap, like Keselowski, Boyer, Bubba Wallace, Kyle Larson. Oh, I guess yeah, those guys, they didn't crash and they didn't finish on the lead lap. So it's not just like the scrubs that are not finishing on the lead lap. So definitely interesting strategy here. Now, guys, before we jump into the driver breakdown here, if you can hit the like button, that gives me and Phil the positive feedback we need to give you our best plays. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, hit that red subscribe button. We have a NASCAR show every week, plus other DFS. So that'll make sure you see our stuff on your feed. And just one question before we get going. If I normally drink like a 6-pack during a normal NASCAR race, because this is so long, like what should I be preparing here before the race gets going?
Oh man, you got to pace yourself. Like, go get some seltzer. I mean,
some White Claws. That's not a bad idea here.
Yeah. And plus, if you're the regular motorsports fan, you may have been hitting it hard during the Indy 500. So I mean, get on the Grubhub, get on the DoorDash, get you something nice and hearty, like a steak, something with a nice fat and protein content to help break up the possible drunkenness that you're leaning towards, and take it easy.
Yeah, we got tomorrow off. Well, most of us do. I guess in the DFS world, it's not a day off, but Honestly, I don't mess with that indie stuff, so I'm good right now. There's no DFS yet. Maybe next year. Anyway, we gotta start with Kyle Larson because man, going into this season, I was thinking like, okay, this guy's kind of disgraced from that remark over iRacing, and then I was a little bit worried about the team and the equipment like not being quite as good as before, but he's been by far like the best driver so far this season. To top it off, he led in qualifying. He's starting first, so he's going to be super popular. He seems like the most likely guy to not only like lead laps but to win the race. Definitely lead stage one. So what are you going to do with Kyle Larson?
Man, I hate to say it, but I think I'm probably taking the path that a lot of people are going down. And as I look at the top drivers tool on the website, and I'm looking at our ownership projections for him, it's high, but it's not crazy, which makes me it makes me glad that like people are just not absolutely locking in Larson. You know, maybe there's some fear about what's happened for the last year, going back to the start of racing past COVID last year, about what's happened to past pole sitters. And you know, if you have that concern, I mean, it's totally viable. In those other races, drivers were given the pole thanks to a wacky formula or random draw, and there was nothing real or tangible to make you say, okay, this driver actually earned this pole position and actually has the speed to lead from here. This week, I mean, they only had one 50-minute practice session, but Kyle went out there. He ran the third fastest single lap speed, the third fastest 5-lap interval, the fastest 10-lap interval, the third fastest 15-lap interval, and then only five drivers went out and ran a 20-lap interval, and he was the fifth fastest of them all. But I mean, still, short run, long run speed, it's all there. It totally backs up what we've seen Larson do in this car, in this package this year. 4 races, best driver rating, averaging 84.4 Fanduel points per race, 105.2 Draftkings points per race. He has the win back at Las Vegas. He's got 2 other top 5 finishes, averaging 61.5 fastest laps, 127 laps led in those 4 races. He's just been phenomenal. And this is a side note. This is Jimmy Johnson's team from last season. It's remarkable. You take Larson, you put him in this car, and compare what Jimmy did in this car last year to what Kyle's doing in this car last year. It's almost sad and makes you think, man, Jimmy may have held on just a little bit too long. If this is what Kyle, who missed practically all of last season, was just able to jump into this car and do from the get-go. But yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a story to be told once this race starts to transition into a night event about what the setup looks like for Larson and for the rest of the Hendrick cars, because the rest of the Hendrick cars in the daytime, in that Friday practice session, in yesterday's qualifying session, they were all fast. But what transitions they make to get these cars viable for a night race is to be seen. But I mean, half this race is going to be in the daylight, and I don't see any reason why Larson doesn't just start off from the pole and lead a good majority of this race.
Yeah, it definitely seems likely, especially the guy starting second is Stenhouse, so it's not like he's gonna really push Larson. I think 720 Red Dog sums it up well. He says Larson has already led up more than 150 laps 3 times this year. Basically, if you haven't been playing Larson, you haven't been winning. So the one thing is like there's a certain threshold of points where like once they get beyond 100 points, it doesn't really matter all those extra points because like they're going to be in the winning lineup regardless. I guess it matters because other guys wouldn't be scoring them. So it's like it's kind of binary for me. Is Larson going to be dominating this race or is he not? So I'm not really worried. Is he going to get 100 points or like 200 points? So
Yeah.
that's the reason why maybe I'll have some lineups without him since he's so popular. But certainly the best play of the slate. Josh says if he leads over 100 laps, doesn't matter where he finishes. So I mean, 100 laps is it point
Yeah,
0.25.
Yeah, 0.25, and you're just going to assume that he's going to get maybe a quarter to 40% of the fastest laps while he's out front. Yeah, like you said, you get to a certain point where you're racking up so many points where he could conceivably wreck out and it's not going to matter because he's accrued so many points.
Definitely. That would be something. All right, so the other guys that are favorites to win this race, Martin Truex. I feel like he's had a couple of rough weeks recently. Definitely hasn't won me much money. Starting 8th, so not a huge threat to lead stage 1, but there are 4 stages, and his odds to win are just behind Larson. So Vegas has a ton of confidence in Martin Truex on this this intermediate track. How do you feel like Truex stacks up to the competition here?
God, this is definitely this is definitely a question of, are you looking at the past or are you looking at this year? Because if you just separate those two, they will give you totally different pictures. If you look at Truex's recent history here, it's pretty good. He's got the win back in 2019. He's got a win back in, let me look here at the laps led data page. Yeah, back in 2016, where he led 392 of 400 laps. Surely he put up a 200 plus Draftkings score that day. Made that race probably just hopeless to watch.
Definitely.
Yeah, and in last year's races, 9th and 6th, and then you go back to 2018. He finished 2nd. He's been really good here. He's got another fall win here at Charlotte before they started racing at the Roval. He has really been spectacular here, but, and this is the big but, this season in the 550 horsepower package, he's been all right. I mean, average finish of 6th, which is second best in the field behind his teammate Kyle Busch, but that's only got 1 top 5. No finish outside of the top 10, which is pretty good, but on average, 10.3 fast laps and 11 laps led per race. So those dominator points, they're just not there. Like, and I think really that's my concern, is that I think a lot of this team's focus, and his crew chief Small admitted this basically as much, that as soon as they left Phoenix at the season finale, they started building a car for Phoenix. They wanted to be so good in this 750 horsepower package that should they make the championship for, that they could show up to Phoenix and win that race. So you've seen in this 750 horsepower package that Truex has probably been one of, if not the best driver. He's won in that package 3 times this year. However, perhaps because so much attention has been focused on that package, it's been neglected in this package. Now, neglected is probably a bit of a strong word, considering in 4 races his worst finish is 10th place, but you're just not seeing the dominator points showing up in those races. So that does give me pause for concern with Truex. And if you look at the practice numbers, they're all right. 14th in the single lap, 12th in the 5-lap interval, and then 9th in the 10-lap and 9th in the 15th lap. The thing that I'm betting is that all of the Joe Gibbs cars, they are set up for the night. That's why they didn't run particularly fast in practice. They didn't run particularly fast in qualifying, but when it gets dark, and this is something we've always seen with Truex, when it gets dark, that's when his car comes alive and he becomes a threat. And that's the great unknown, is that all of these intermediate races that we've had in 2020, 2021, they've all been daytime races. So what exactly this car becomes or does when we transition from day into night, that is a huge question. Me personally, I'm going under the field on Truex. It's tough to build a 3 dominator lineup when you go Larson and Truex and then somebody else. That definitely forces you in the punt range. And I'm hoping that what we saw from him last year with, top 10 finishes, but not really dominating. And then what we've seen this year, I'm hoping that that is what we're going to get out of Truex this race tonight.
I'm hoping he ate his carrots today, so he has some good nighttime vision here. Um, yeah, I think he seems like a pretty decent bet to be one of the dominators, but you are paying a lot. So I do find like that starting position of 8 is kind of a disadvantage because you don't get a big place differential like potential, and you don't get the opportunity to lead a ton of laps off the get go. But I mean, the Vegas odds, as you're saying, maybe a little bit influenced by him having such a dominant performance a couple of years ago. So I'm a little torn. Now, the next range, Hamlin, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Busch. This is really going to be testing what you're looking for here because Chase Elliott is starting 3rd, while Hamlin is starting 14 and Kyle Busch 20. So the place differential points definitely favor Hamlin and Busch, but Chase Elliott maybe a little bit more dominator potential at the start. So how are you prioritizing those 3 guys?
Kyle, I probably have way too much Kyle tonight on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's the combination of that starting position, and once again, if you're wanting to take a guess at what Joe Gibbs is doing, look no further than Kyle Busch qualifying 20th, Christopher Bell qualifying 17th, and then Denny Hamlin qualifying 14th. The trim that they have on this car right now, it is not for a day race. It is definitely for a night race. And Kyle starts the furthest out of them. Like we talked about, Kyle, out of the 4 races, he has the best average finish in the entire field at 4.8. 1 win, 2 other top 5 finishes. Yeah, his dominator points, they are not fantastic. I mean, it is 5 laps led per race and 11.5 fastest laps. But this is a long race. The thing that we have been harping on for Kyle, and it's been much better this year compared to last year, is the man needs practice. And heck, he rolled up fast in practice. He went 10th in the single lap, 8th in the 5-lap interval, 6th in the 10-lap interval, 2nd in the 15-lap interval, and then fastest in the 20-lap interval. And he was the only driver to run a 25-lap interval. When a driver stays in his car that long, that tells you that he likes it. Like he is thoroughly enjoying the speed that car is putting down. So you're getting, compared to the rest of these guys, you're getting a little bit of a discount with Kyle at 10-2. You're getting place differential. Last year in the 2nd Charlotte race, he finished 29th, but his 3 finishes before that in the 3 prior Coke 600s, 4th, 3rd, 1st. You're getting dominator potential. I mean, there is so much to love about Kyle tonight. Like, I think in the majority of my lineups, it probably is a Kyle and Kyle pairing tonight.
Nice. That is quite the pairing. We did get some news, so thanks to Doug in chat mentioning Kurt Busch got penalized, so he's starting from the rear today. Now he's starting in 12th, so I don't think that really has a big impact on strategy tonight. Quick thoughts?
Now, like if you were gonna play Kurt, I don't see any reason why you still don't play Kurt. Like if you were just going to use him as a pivot off of Almirola, as a pivot off of Logano and Bell, as a guy to get a possible top 10 finish that's going to be coming in lower ownership. There's 400 laps. There'll be ample opportunity for him to make his way up. Something to be cognitive of, and this goes towards a guy like Kurt starting in the back. This goes towards all of your punt plays, is because we had practice, there will be no competition caution tonight. So that just increases the chances that these guys starting in the back, that if they are slow, they are going to get caught by a blazing hot Larson.
Yep. Yeah, the no competition caution, that makes the pole position a lot more valuable too. So that's another reason why Larson is set up to succeed in DFS today. I'm running a projections update here, so hopefully we can. I'll have the projections for this pushed in a few minutes. I don't think it'll make a big difference. So, all right, let's talk about some value plays. But before we do, I'll have to mention that you can get all the NASCAR tools that we use on the site. So Phill has his race sheets. That's a lot of great information. We have projections, ownership projections. You also get access to our premium Slack channel. And we also have Xfinity and trucks covered as well. This is all $9.95 a week with our Awesemo plus NASCAR weekly. So I mean, maybe he's born with it. Maybe it's Awesemo. All right, so let's talk about some value plays. Honestly, like this is one where the value plays are likely to kind of get far back in the race pretty quick, but I see some big place differential possibilities in the middle here. So I saw in chat someone was asking about Eric Almirola. He's not a value play, but he is starting 31st, and that's a little far back for him. How are you going to handle that? Because you got to actually like invest a good amount of salary to get there.
Yeah, and, you know, to be frank, Almirola is kind of in the same boat as Matty D, where the place differential upside is there, but God, I really don't know what the ceiling is. And I mean, the fear that you have with Almirola is that he continues to get snake bit. He has just had the absolute worst luck, just terrible luck over these last couple of weeks, and you don't feel safe playing him. And it's not like he has gone out and sought out the wrecks or the mechanical issues or blah 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 blah. You know, a few times it's been his issue, but the majority of it's been him getting turned by somebody else. You know, just something totally out of his hands. So if we're just going to assume that Almirola doesn't get wrecked, which I mean is the assumption that we place on everybody else when we're playing DFS, maybe he's a top. He might be a top 15 driver. Like, I think that you're probably looking at that range. His best finish over the last 3 years was 11th back in 2019. So if he's going to pick up 15, 16 spots, then that's good. But then what, like you said, it's not like he's cheap. He's $7,900 on DraftKings. He's $7,500 on Fanduel. So if he picks up those 15 spots, he's probably going to do good enough to beat 5x value. But I think, like, if you're going to make Almirola, or just for this conversation, Matty D, and then, you know, right in that same range, I believe you're looking at Cole Custer starting 23rd, who's 8,000. If you're gonna make the case for these drivers to be like core plays, I think you need top 10 finishes out of them. And Almirola, it's a bit of a stretch because he has not had speed, plus he's had bad luck. Cole Custer kind of in that same boat. And I think Matty D, really his viability comes down to this being a late wreck fest where we've got several restarts. I was listening to the Positive Regression podcast with David Smith, who writes for NBC Sports, and he was talking about Matty D, how he is one of the best surplus passers when it comes to restarts. Now, when we have a green race, that's when you generally see Matty D finish in the 20s. But when we have a series of yellow flags and restarts, that's when Matty D can pick his spots and move up into the top 10. So if you think that's what could possibly happen tonight, then yeah, that gives me reason to be behind Matty D in tournaments. But if that's not the case, then I think Matty D is just kind of like a safe play for cash.
Nice. Yeah, I describe Almirola that way too. I don't know if I'm going to get to a ton of tournaments. We did just get a news guide update in premium NASCAR, so make sure to jump on our Slack. Not only is Kurt Busch sent to the rear, but BJ McLeod also penalized and sent to the rear. Time to change everything, right?
Anyway. I'm gonna need to leave the pod. Sorry.
All right. We got a bunch of questions in chat. Just quick thoughts on this. Jay and Gary want to know how you feel about Harvick.
Harvick's all right. He's an expensive tournament play, and I don't want to play him on DraftKings because I don't think he has any upside to lead. Like what he's done just through this whole year, it has not been fantastic. And when you look at this package, the 4 races, 4.3 fast laps, 0 laps led, with an average finish of 9.3. 2 top 5s, and no finish worse than 20th. But I mean, I just don't want to pay $10,000 on DraftKings for a possible top 10 finish who has, it seems, little upside for fastest laps. And on FanDuel, I really think it's the same case. Like, I would rather go up to a guy like William Byron, who I think could legitimately lead some laps tonight. Alex Bowman, he's in that same boat for me, and I don't feel that way about Harvick.
Yeah, he's in a tough starting position with 5th, where not a great one to lead laps off the get-go, and no placement differential upside. So I do feel like he's not as big a priority. I'm a little surprised that his Vegas odds are only 14-1, so that does seem a little low for a driver of this caliber. We also had News God asking thoughts on Ryan Blaney on FanDuel. So how you feel about Blaney on FanDuel, and is there anyone we mentioned so far that might be better or worse on FanDuel?
Oh, I like Blaney. I've got some Blaney on DraftKings and 20 max. I'm probably sitting at maybe 10 to 15% of Blaney on FanDuel and 150 max. Blaney is in this boat that I've got of secondary dominators where I'm not making them a priority to get into my lineups, but they sometimes in lineup builds find their way there because they're salary relief, and I feel like they can be a potential dominator in the sense that they're going to lead, let's just say maybe 30, 40, 50 laps through the night, get some fastest laps. Blaney runs good in cooler conditions with more grip. This is what we're going to have as this race transitions into a night race. In the 2 races last year in similar conditions, he finished 3rd back-to-back races. Blaney won the race at Atlanta when that was a cool track with more grip. He's a guy that I really like on both sides. I think I like him a bit more on DraftKings because he's underpriced. He's $9,000. Like, if you're going to go with a 2 dominator build and then you're looking to get a 3rd dominator in there and save some money because you're worried that the top 2 guys, let's just say for kicks and grins, I'm going to build a Larson and Chase dominator lineup because these guys start so far forward. They've got speed. Hendrick looks really good this weekend, and I want to get a 3rd dominator in there based off of past trends at this track, but I don't want to spend up for Truex. I want to get off the Kyle Busch chalk. I don't really want to play Kevin Harvick. Well, let me just slide on down here to the likes of Ryan Blaney, who has that potential and is going to save me some money and possibly keep me from out of the punt range.
Nice. We've gotten a couple of questions about Suarez. So he's starting a lot farther forward than he normally is. And Rich in the chat, in our premium Slack chat, was saying it's confusing seeing him start this far forward in 9th. Now, this is a guy we've had success going to as a value play. He's not expensive today. Obviously did well in qualifying, but starting a little bit far forward. So how are you handling him?
This is just a guess or an assumption, if you will, but I have a feeling that all of the Chevys got super trimmed out for qualifying and are really going to be super trimmed out at the very beginning of this race for the daytime portion. I mean, just go down the starting grid: Chevy, Ford, Chevy, Toyota,
Wow.
Chevy. I mean, you're talking about out of those top 11 guys that only 2 of them are not Chevys. Suarez, guy, like I said, he's in a tough position. He showed plenty of speed in practice. He was 6th in the single lap, 7th in the 5-lap interval, 5th in the 10-lap interval. I mean, that's really good speed. You've got the corollary here with this being a Richard Childress inspired or aided car, and Austin has run here pretty well over the last couple of years. You look at his teammate Tyler Reddick. Reddick went 14th and 8th in his 2 starts here last year. So if the Richard Childress setup is leaking its way to the 99 because they basically run out of the same shop, then it kind of gives you hope that maybe Suarez can run around in the top 10 and the top 15. And if he's got this speed, God, there is a chance that he could hang on to track position and hang around this spot all night. I mean, even when he was in good equipment at Joe Gibbs, he really wasn't that fantastic of a driver here. Like if I look at the race sheets and look at the last 10 races at the track for Daniel Suarez, yeah, going back to Joe Gibbs, he had a 11th, 6th, and a 15th, and then when he was at Stuart Haas in 18th, but then those 2 races last year in the Gaunt Brothers car, it was 28th. So yeah, I think he's got the potential for a top 15 finish, but Lord, you are going to be sweating it all night. You are going to be looking to that left-hand side of the screen, trying to figure out where he's at. And it could be one pit stop and just ruin this entire night. And that's the risk with him starting 9th. I mean, even if he falls back into the 20s, you are going to be looking at 0, possibly getting into the negative realm. So it's super, super tough to get behind this. But if you're looking for a high risk leverage play to get off of the Buescher, Newman, Briscoe chalk in that range, then Suarez is the guy that you go to. And quite frankly, you could probably make that same case for Ross Chastain in slightly better equipment.
Yeah, I feel like these guys that are kind of mid-tier that start towards the front, I kind of like them sometimes because there's like a ton of variance how they're going to do compared to the guys in similar price range. So the projection is super low on Suarez. And earlier today, someone was calling me out for having him as my bottom projected guy. I went back and I looked, I bumped him up a bit, but still not great value. But there is like one correlation that I try to do in NASCAR, and that's if a guy has a chance of dominating, when they do, they're going to be with a really good finishing position usually too. So that does give him upside. Now let's talk about some of the punt plays today. And I mean, I find I'm ending up with a lot of guys that I really hate in my lineups, to be honest, man. So I'm hoping you can help me out here. Like either tell me if this makes sense or if I'm totally crazy. But one guy that I'm ending up with a lot is Cody Ware. He's the 3rd from the bottom price. And I guess he's just a little bit faster than, Josh Bilicki, Garrett Smith, and James Davidson. So maybe he doesn't finish last is what I'm trying to say. And he's starting 34th. Now, who's your favorite guy in this bottom range? Because these are some really bad guys to choose from.
Oh yeah. Because of my fear of what's going to happen with these cheaper fund, God, I know English teachers are throwing their hands up in the air the way that I'm trying to phrase this, but the underfunded squads, my fear with them mechanically, no one gives you confidence. Like if you're building a 3 max and you find yourself with a punt play, you're going to be second guessing yourself all night about these plays. Let's just for kicks and grins, let's talk about Cody Ware. He only ran he didn't run a 5-lap practice time. He didn't spend that much time out there, but he probably didn't need to. He ran yesterday in the Xfinity race. He was going to get more than enough track time. If you just look at the single lap speeds, Cody he ranked 33rd. That's better than Davison. That's better than Smithley. That's better than Bilicki. That's better than Starr. And quite frankly, when you look at these speeds, it's 3-5 miles per hour faster than these guys. So yeah, the speed with Ware, it is definitely there. These 4 races in the intermediate tracks, average finish of 32.8. Ware's only raced this race one time. It was a finish of 38th, but he was a younger driver a couple of years ago. He's got a lot more seat time under his belt. To be frank, I think the main thing here is if you're doing 20 max or you're doing 150 max, don't go crazy on any of these guys priced below Anthony Alfredo. Like if you're going to have a bunch of them because you're trying to squeeze in 3 dominators, then I would sprinkle in all of them without getting crazy on any of them. And if like literally, if they're all going to just be kind of the same thing to me, then I'm just going to spin down and go to Quinn Houff. Yeah, he doesn't have the place he doesn't have the place differential starting 32nd, but he's the cheapest, so he's gonna give you the most max, he's gonna maximize your lineup the most with what you're trying to do. And when you look at the speed, he came in was it 174.199 miles per hour in his fastest single lap interval, and then he also did run a 5-lap interval that was faster than Davison, that was faster than Starr, who also ran 5-lap intervals. So yeah, I mean, I'm not crazy about any of these guys, but if I'm going to have to play somebody down in this range, I'm going to take the cheapest guy. And quite frankly, I don't have any reason to believe that Houff's equipment is any better or any worse than the rest of these guys. So give me the guy that saves me money.
Definitely. All right, we got a couple questions here. EMAC, our old pal. He said he's been listening to the show a long time, but this is his first time calling in. And I think this is tying into what we're talking about here. What's the sweet spot for number of dominators? So, and then also Mr. Moneybags asked about Justin Haley, another punt play in this range. Now, I feel like the number of laps kind of correlates to the number of dominators, but this one, like my general thought is like a different guy could dominate each stage, and then you'll end up with a 3 dominator build. The problem is tonight there's 4 stages, so I mean, like I don't think it's super likely that one guy is going to dominate the whole race. You probably have like at least 2, but probably 3, and if not 4. So I'd say I'm going for 3 dominators in most lineups. What are you feeling tonight?
Yeah, when I look at what I've built on DraftKings and FanDuel, the majority of it is 3 dominator builds. I do have some 2 dominator builds in case this becomes a like just say for example, Larson is king of the hill when it comes to this race under the day, but then as this race transitions into a night race, somebody has a better setup, passes him, and then they sail off. So I mean, at the baseline, I would say 2. At the most, I would go with 3. If you have a 4 dominator build, then you've definitely double dipped into that second dominator boat of cheaper guys that have the ability to lead. And quite frankly, we have seen weirder things this year. And granted, it is a different package that races different with less downforce and more horsepower. We saw Larson basically lead almost the entire race at Dover, and we saw Truex almost lead the entire race at Darlington. Could the same thing happen here? Sure. It's happened twice in like 2 of the last 4 or 5 Coke 600s. We don't really see that in this package, but if you wanted to build just a single dominator build, I would say that's on the table. But chances are that if you're building a single dominator build with Larson, it's also a 2 dominator build because you've probably stuck Kyle Busch in there as well.
Now let's talk about Haley. I mean, this guy was a crusher when he was in Xfinity and Camping World Series. So it's kind of sad that he took over the Spire Motorsports car, where one of the names in recent memory, or a few of them, Reed Sorensen, JJ Yaley, not guys that usually did well in NASCAR. And Cody Ware Justin Haley hasn't been like doing anything, but he's been better than some of the other guys at the bottom by a decent margin. So he's one of the punt plays I'm going to tonight. Now like how are you feeling about Haley?
Haley scares me like the rest of these punt plays. Like if you look he started off the year pretty good. He didn't race in the Daytona 500, but then he finished 24th in the Daytona road course, and then a 26th, the 29th, and then the 24th at Phoenix, and then 30th, 35th, 38th, 30th, 30th, 28th, didn't race, and then we've got 40th last week. I worry about the mechanical longevity of this car. And if I'm worried, and this is just a side tangent, if I'm worried about Haley's equipment, that should also worry me about his teammate, Corey LaJoie, who I've seen a lot of people oddly getting behind this week based off of track history in a different car. If you look at LaJoie's finishes in the 4 intermediate tracks, his average finish is 32.3. Like, neither of these cars have been good in this package, even though they should do better in the 550 horsepower package, because that's when we see the top tier teams lose a bit of their competitive advantage. But neither of these Spire Motorsports cars have done well in this package, and now we're turning this from a 267 or a 325 lap race into a 400 lap race. I mean, I don't have any confidence in either of these two to actually finish this race. Haley's just kind of like Ware, Smithley, Houth. Don't go overboard with them. Have some exposure to him, and kind of the same thing for Corey LaJoie. LaJoie's the best driver out of this lot, but God, I just don't know what his car is going to hold up to tonight.
All right, Phill, I don't know how much you've been checking out our NBA and MLB shows, but our friend Spags, he likes to do this segment on Live Before a Lot called Money Time, where he breaks out his cash money hat and he gives the top 5 own plays of the night. So I'll mention the top 5 own plays. We're about 30 minutes to lock on DraftKings, 10 minutes to lock on Fanduel. But before we get into that I want to mention that you can win a free month of Awesemo Plus by our Avatar Challenge. Go to awesemo.com/avatar. Just got finished in the top 3 of a GPP. We're also sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. They have a lot of contests where you can bet on NASCAR. Kind of is a guy going to get over a certain amount of fantasy points, which is their finishing position, laps led, or under. And they also have a promo code Awesemo, which gives you a $100 match. All right, so a few guys that we haven't mentioned so far in the top 5. Okay, number 1's not going to surprise you. Kyle Larson, 47%. Chris Buescher, 42%. Newman, 39%. People are loving these 6K guys. Kyle Busch, 35%, and Logano, 30%. So I think the names we got to talk about here are Buescher and Newman. Buescher is starting in 27th and Newman's 25th. The thing is, like, okay, those are low for them, but I only have them as like the 22nd and 20th fastest cars. So I don't know if their average finishing position is going to be that much higher than their starting position. Oh, by the way, nice hat. I like a little money time participation here. All right, so how are you feeling about Buescher and Newman?
Oh God, yeah, this is definitely the chalk. And I was discussing it with somebody else about an hour ago about this is just the way that DraftKings lineup construction is going to lend itself to, is that you're going to play around with a couple of these guys, maybe even 3 of these guys in the 10K range, and then that's naturally going to force you back into the 6K range. So expect a bunch of ownership on Newman, a bunch of ownership on Buescher. Yeah, it's not surprising to see that Buescher is going to project to be the second highest owned driver tonight. You look at his history here, his last 3 finishes, 22nd, 10, and 6th, which that's promising. But the thing that you've got to be wary of is that in this package here this season, he's got the 8th best average finish. I believe it's sitting at 12th place right now. I mean, there's a slew of guys in better equipment that he is doing better than. He led a fair amount of laps in the race at Miami Homestead. He's just been really making the most of his equipment. And say what you will about Roush, but it looks like him and Newman are doing a better job this year, especially in this package of getting the most out of it. So yeah, I mean, Buescher looks like a guy that could possibly give you another top 15 finish, and if he just hangs around there, he could possibly sneak into the top 10. He's a guy that I had to scale back my ownership because I went way too heavy on him in my initial builds. And the thing that I did is I started lowering some of that and getting on to Chase Briscoe, who we have as an amazing pivot off of those two guys. Briscoe has been running much better. He looked really, really good in that road course last week. Not that correlates to this at all, but you look at what Briscoe has been doing the last few weeks. He's been giving you top 15, top 20 finishes. He had the 35th place at finish at Dover, but other than that, he's been running a lot more consistent than he had to begin the season. And quite frankly, I'm seeing a fair amount of Fords, lower tier, more mid-tier Fords in this range, because you've got Chase Briscoe starting 21st, you've got Matty D starting 22nd, Cole Custer starting 23rd, McDowell starting 24th, Newman starting 25th, Buescher starting 27th. Those are all Fords from mid-tier teams. So the hope is, and not really any of them ran good practice times, save for Newman. He was top 15 in all of his practice runs, but the rest of these guys, they weren't running that well. So the hope is that kind of like the Joe Gibbs cars, is that they may not do that well to begin with here under the sun, but then when this transitions into a night race, perhaps that's what they're aiming for, and that's when you'll really see them excel.
Definitely. I feel like Newman and Buescher are really solid. You can build a really sick lineup that those are the cheapest guys you go. The one thing I'd say me and Phill are kind of emphasizing is don't be afraid to go to some guys you don't normally go to because of how many laps there are here. Just a necessity to get those high price guys in. Now let's talk about a couple of low owned plays while people are finishing their laps here. 5 minutes slack on Fanduel, and we got 25 minutes on Draftkings. Now, one guy I'm kind of pegging as a potential low owned dart throw is Ricky Stenhouse starting second. I mean, this could absolutely destroy your lineup, right?
Yeah.
But if he leads lap like stage one, which underdog to do that, but not out of the realm of possibility, then he could start putting up a pretty decent score. But I'm just looking at the ownership of 8 or 7%. I think maybe there's potential there. He's been pretty solid this year. Now, how do you feel about Stenhouse, and who are some low owned guys you're looking at today?
Yeah, Ricky scares you because, I mean, he could easily just go backwards and keep going backwards. But there's a reason he qualified second. He showed up with lots of speed in that practice session. You go back and look at his short-term history here at Charlotte, fourth in the second Charlotte race last year, fifth in the 2019 Coca-Cola 600, 10th in the 18th in the 2018 Coca-Cola 600. So he's got good finishes here. Different cars, still continues that consistency. Showed up with plenty of speed. God, all he might need is Larson to screw up his initial launch on the green flag run, and Stenhouse probably has enough speed where he could take the lead and jump out front for a bit. There's so much risk in this, and when you look at the odds, like on DraftKings Sportsbook, he has the same odds to win as Suarez, Chastain, Cole Custer, Michael McDowell, Ryan Newman, Chris Buescher. So I mean, the books aren't that high on him, but at 7,400 on DraftKings, 7,700 on FanDuel, like if he can hang around the top 10, which he should, I mean, that definitely isn't out of the realm of possibilities. Get you some fastest laps. He could definitely pay off, and he is He's the scariest pivot off of Matty D, but he's probably the one that's going to give you the highest risk reward for doing so.
That's what gets me excited here. If you pick Stenhouse, you're going to be sweating until the end, hopefully. Guys, thanks a lot for tuning in here. We got our NBA second live before lock coming up right after this. So if you're getting some nice slate lineups after NASCAR, make sure to tune in. Thanks, Monkey Knife Fight, for sponsoring the show. Make sure to check them out and their NASCAR product. And guys, thanks for supporting the channel. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, and good luck tonight.